And welcome to another edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff Deforrest on a Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday following a brilliant weekend of degeneracy where we got into all kinds of different stuff. We had action on baseball, we had action on golf, even got involved. I would imagine that this is relatively new to anybody, but did anybody bet on the WNBA before Caitlin Clark came along? FanDuel should give this woman a piece of every dime of action that is wagered on WNBA games. But we came out not necessarily in need of a cut, man. We got damaged a little bit on a couple of things, but managed to keep our streak alive with Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh Pirates in the Friday selection that we gave you in Major League Baseball, taking us to a pretty good start. 3-0 our first week betting baseball games and giving them out here on the program. That certainly goes a long way towards helping you bury your bookie. And we did it under the theory, though, the dark cloud that's always cast upon, there's always a gray area when you're wagering. And the dark cloud that was cast upon that game with the Pittsburgh Pirates was, and it was against the Seattle Mariners, was Paul Skeens. Were we late to the party? I've often been late to the party when it came to stock market investments. When do I get involved? Just before the crash. Make a few bucks the first month. By the second month, I'm completely wiped out. And you have that look on your face like you just passed away and you saw the final number. And that's why a lot of gamblers die with their mouths wide open like this. Because what flashes before your eyes just before you take that last deep, good breath is the amount of money that you've lost lifetime gambling. And that's what, go to your grave thinking maybe it's a good time to get out. Hey, if you are cashing tickets, though, or you feel pretty confident, or maybe you're playing our baseball picks here on Bury Your Bookie, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Going to get into that a little bit later on in the program here today. From the preseason NFL to college kicking off, BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads while the games are being played themselves. You can get in action while they're in action. Think you know your stuff? This is a good spot. Get in on the winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor Pool for the upcoming season. Get in quickly. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino. You can play poker, blackjack, get involved with over 150 slot games that they offer. It's really a heck of a lot of fun. Bet online. Head to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV, all caps, and get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. Yeah, you don't want to be late to the party. That's a number one rule of thumb in gambling, any form of degeneracy. When the stock market was thriving, like I mentioned, all of a sudden I get involved. I happen to have a little bit of money at the time. I think I put 100 grand in there. This is years ago when 100 grand was 100 grand. And by the time I got 2 months into the program, that had dissipated down to about 87,000 and whoosh, right out the door. And thank God I got out when I did, because it would have been years before you were able to enact some sort of a comeback. And then, of course, the housing market, I still remember my father, may he rest in peace. Thank you, Dad, for everything. My father telling me in 2008, he said, son, the good news is you own 3 houses. And the bad news is you own 3 houses, which it went into complete decline. Everything became worthless. And next thing you know, I'm pulling lint out of my pocket and hoping somebody will give me a winner at the track. So you don't want to be late to the party. And I thought we might have been late to the party with Paul Skeens, but that turned out not to be the case. He was coming off a loss. We used the bowl logic that this guy was going to bounce back in his quest to be Rookie of the Year. He really does have sensational stuff. He's going to strike out a lot of people. He's been going longer distances in games than you might expect for a rookie who's being somewhat coddled. I don't know. They kind of have let this guy go. So that turned out to be a very fortuitous pick. We weren't late to the party there. But we do have a selection today. And I don't know that I feel compelled to give something out every day. But and this may be one of those hunches that it really goes awry, because it's the direct opposite of the theory that you don't want to be late to the party, and that is you don't want to go to the well too often. Can you go to the well one time too many? Some jockey's red hot at the track. He's won 3 races in a row. Do you assume he's going to stay hot and win 4? Guy's 3 for 3 in a ball game. He's got a home run already. Do you go ahead and in live in-game betting say, hey, I think he's going to smack another one? You definitely have to be careful about going to the well once too often. But we're going to do it here today. We're going to go ahead and defy what would be the usual cautionary logic and throw caution to the wind, so to speak, the old cliche, and go ahead. You used to hear that a lot in boxing matches. I even found myself when I was calling boxing going, hey, he's throwing caution to the wind. What the fuck does that mean? I guess you're kind of carefree. You're just going to take a stab no matter what. But we're going to go ahead and one more time, go to the well one more time and bet against Trevor Rogers, which is the only advantage that we've seen so far and we originate from South Florida. So naturally, the team that we see most often in Major League Baseball is the rather pathetic organization now known as the Miami Marlins, which contraction is one of those words you think of when you think of the Marlins. Like, hey, maybe they could just get them out of the league. It should be like European soccer, where if a team's really, really bad and the organization proves to be just a room for sending the clowns, that maybe they ought to consider just banning these guys from the league, reducing them down to minor league level, which they essentially have with this team. But yeah, I mean, you look at Trevor Rogers when he was with the Marlins, and that's the one advantage that we have is we were able to see this guy, unfortunately, have a backwards evolution from his rookie season to the point where he became a commodity that when he was traded to the Orioles, that was one of the few guys that you said, oh, good. They got rid of this guy because as nice a kid as he may be, and he seems to be very humble and kind of grounded individual that you would really applaud and root for him to be successful. It just hasn't been the case. He's been getting raked, my friends, raked. So we're going to go against him one more time and go out on a limb here and say that the Mets at home, Citi Field, they just lost to the Marlins, oddly enough, yesterday in an embarrassing performance against a team that is floundering at the bottom of the division and going to be lucky. That was our best bet of the season. Take the Marlins under the total of 79 from solid inside information that we had. A diehard Marlins lifer is telling us, hey, listen, this team is really going to suck this year. And he was absolutely right. But we're going to take the Mets coming off that loss to go against Trevor Rogers and the Baltimore Orioles and lay 130 to win 100 tonight. Don't like to lay a price. It's not that fat of a price considering that we're going to the well one more time. So are we going to it one time too often? I don't know. We weren't late to the party with Paul Skeens. We say take the Mets tonight at minus 130 over the Orioles. They have Peterson going, David Peterson. He's having a good year, 7-1 record-wise, 3.04 earned run average. So in there with a legitimate shot. Mets fighting for their wild card position and find themselves kind of on the outside looking in. Orioles in a dead heat with the Yankees, who suffered. Man, if you lost that game last night, maybe you were laying a big price with the Yankees over Detroit. Little League World Series game they have every year. So they had it at Williamsport. In fact, I thought at one point in time, the Yankees were going to bring in some of the kids from Chinese Taipei to play because it looked like they had raided their minor leagues to find guys to fill out the positions in the field, which turned out to hurt them late in the ball game. But that was a tough loss if you happen to incur that. All right, a couple of other things. I imagine the New York offices of the National Football League, as they got word from Las Vegas and Antonio Pierce that Gardner Minshew was going to be the starting quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, nothing against this guy. He seems to be a solid citizen also. And he's had some moments where he looked like, okay, you could live with this guy. But I don't know. Are you going to win any championships with Gardner Minshew as quarterback? But it had to be of concern, right? Here's the Las Vegas Raiders trying to establish an identity in Las Vegas, a city that every league wants to have a stronghold in now. And while there was originally some resentment about the Raiders leaving Oakland, as there always was, you had that whole thing with Al Davis when they moved to Los Angeles, and Pete Rozelle hated the guy. They didn't speak to each other. It was kind of like, Putin and anybody else in the world besides Kim Jong-un getting together. I mean, it just didn't mix. And I would think now that the league is very happy that they have a team in Las Vegas, but I would imagine the conversation, hey, Bill, can you believe this? Gardner Minshew. He does sound like some actor that would be cast as the star in the remake of Matlock. But as a star quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders, an organization that you would like to see do well, I would imagine, if you were the National Football League, hardly the kind of news that you think erupted in euphoria in the league offices as they were trying to tell their television partners, don't worry about those billions you just spent. Yeah, oh no, Minshew, he's a big draw. Good luck with that. If you're betting preseason football, by the way, wow, I mean, we feel your pain. And we have yet to make a recommendation on a preseason game. I would imagine maybe one of our handicappers will have some steam on that the final week of the preseason coming up. You don't know who's playing, but think about the tough beats that are involved there. I really suggest if you're betting preseason football, seek therapy immediately. I'm not talking about some cheesy online consulting firm where they tell you that, oh, listen, things are going to be okay. I'm not even some spiritualist. Even if you're somewhere in New Orleans and you run into a gypsy, I wouldn't buy her word. I would seek legitimate professional help if you're betting preseason football for the sim. And maybe there are people out there looking at me right now and saying, "Who is this clown, man? I'm winning money hand over fist." If you are, good for you. You certainly are living a much more fortunate life than we are here at Bury Your Bookie, because we stay out of it. Just look at this game between the Miami Dolphins and the Washington Commanders, where I don't know who the schmink field goal kicker was for the Commanders, but the Commanders are getting 5 points in a game where the Dolphins open up with Tua Tagovailoa, just fresh off getting a pile of cash. He's euphoric. He's happy. He's firing a rock. He goes 5 for 5, throws a touchdown pass, goes to the bench. And we know this from watching the first preseason game, first week of the preseason. The Miami Dolphins have the 2 worst backup quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League in Skylar Thompson and Mike White, who was actually at one time anointed the starter for the New York Jets. And people were happy about it because Zach Wilson was such a disappointment. Old Hack Wilson there, who people keep trying to sell us. Oh, yeah, he's going to be okay. Maybe he will. But maybe not in my lifetime. But if you're living with that, it's definitely a problem. So you're going to have 2 terrible backup quarterbacks in there. The Dolphins end up with a total of 13 points in the game, and this field goal kicker, the schmuck, ends up missing 2 field goals from very makeable range, inside of 50 yards. Now that's almost a gimme in the National Football League. If he makes either of the 2 shank jobs, you win. You cover the 5-point spread. But otherwise, you end up losing to a bunch of NFL bag ladies that were playing for the Miami Dolphins. And what happens? Whatever it is that you laid out there is up in smoke. So very treacherous. And in the other game that was completely mystifying from the results standpoint, you had the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russell Wilson and with Fields going. And you're asking yourself, hey, wait a minute. These guys are competing for the starting job. Neither guy wants to be on the bench. So you're imagining that they're going to light it up. And instead, what ends up happening, they score 3 total points. They go for a couple of 4th downs when they were in close with a chance to put at least some points on the board. And while they were favored in the ball game, they end up scoring 3 points against the Buffalo Bills in a 9-3 classic. And you end up stuck like a schmo, having to pay off your bookie and, realize that professional help, can go a long way if you're counting on anything to happen in the preseason that would have even the slightest connection to any sort of logic. That makes it tough. We gave out a horse. Got the Travers coming up this week. We'll try and get some steam on that for you guys towards the end of the week. See if we can tap into one of our good friends, Frank Miramonte, who is a track announcer at Saratoga and an outstanding, astute horse player in his own right. Travers is going. That's a big race. They have a lot of stakes going at Saratoga. It's towards the end of the meet. Everybody's loving it up there. But we give out a horse, and this got into an interesting gambling ethics question, which is, are you obligated to give your friends a tip on a horse that you've received? Now, you should probably do some of your own handicapping before you mention this to anybody else. And you also have to vet the source a little bit. What kind of reliance has there been in the past on anything that this particular person has said? Now in this case, I barely knew the guy, but I just thought the circumstances were such that possibly there was some reason to believe that there was some merit to his considerations, which was that a horse called Dancing Magic, a 2-year-old, was going to break his maiden in the second race at Colonial Downs. I like the tip only because of the obscurity of getting a 2-year-old maiden tip at Colonial Downs from a guy that I think I've met once, who was giving this horse to my wife, thinking that she would pass it along to me and not knowing who else would receive this information. Now, we gave it out to our adoring public here at Bury Your Bookie, and as we were saying, I probably could name you 10 or 12 tip horses that have delivered in my lifetime. But when you look at the percentages there, they're very low because lifetime encompasses about almost 60 years of going to the track. So if you're 10 for 60 years in tip horses that have connected, the normal frame of mind would dictate and mandate that you ignore these tips and never mention them to anybody. But we gave it out, so we have to take accountability for it. The horse ran second, took the lead in the stretch, but didn't look like a winner during any particular point in the race. Was on the lead, took the lead in the stretch after stalking and being involved in not necessarily a big speed duel, but it appeared that the horse was definitely in there with a shot. Got bet down to favoritism the last few flashes. So this tip was not only burying us, but burying you, and it was universal all over the world. People in Ireland were, sitting there throwing beer at the screen, going, "Now, what the heck kind of tip was that?" As Dancing Magic finished second. Now, you could have made money with that. And then, of course, we were following a golf tournament with Billy Horschel, who we gave out at 50 to 1 to win a tournament. Is there an implied hedge there? When you give out something as bizarre as a 50 to 1 shot, and you only have one golfer out of the 70 that were in the field, is there an implied hedge that you would also use this golfer, as 50 to 1 would have been at least, 5 to 1 to finish in the top 10, which he did, Billy Horschel. He gave us a little bit of a brief flash that we might have been able to create the legend that we were looking to here. But Hideki Matsuyama ran away and hid, and then had to hang on with a couple of birdies late to eventually win the tournament. The usual suspects were there. So if you're a chalk playing dog, a milk of magnesia gargling specialist, you probably had Scheffler and Schauffele. And we're glad you lost with those guys. Almost gave out. I can say this now, and it sounds like it's after the fact, post-race handicapping, which we're great at. Was going to mention Victor Hovland as a possibility, but even he lost in more desperate fashion, as he had a chance to birdie 18 and force a possibility of a playoff with Matsuyama. Putt slides by from about 12 feet away, and he ends up a loser too. But the natural hedge up, and I think we're going to always imply this, if we give you a golfer in a tournament, the natural hedge is play him in the top 10 also. And that way, at least you're making a profit on what otherwise it could have been a spectacular pick, but ended up being in the loss column once again. All right, a lot of action coming up this week. We'll have some handicappers on the show coming up for you all throughout the week. Troy West is going to join us again, trying to redeem himself off the one losing baseball game that was posted here on the show last week. He was also following Colin Morikawa, who didn't do much in the FedEx St. Jude Classic. The field will be down to 50 next week. And so it might be a little easier to take a stab at somebody, but we don't want to go with the chalk. So there's just no romance in that. And also later on, we'll have some college football plays for you with the professor, and some other surprises as well. So stick with us. Congratulations if you're following our plays on baseball. Personal picks so far, and Henry can verify this from No Filter. 3-0. We're going with the Mets tonight. The Mets. Are we going to the well once too often? Betting against. This is a stance against Trevor Rogers of the Baltimore Orioles. Mets minus 130 over the Orioles. That's our play for today on Bury Your Bookie. We will see you next time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'm Jeff Deforrest, and hoping that we all have the same desired outcome, and that is to simply bury your bookie.